As many people say, it's not attention deficit, it's variable attention or scattered attention. Well, one of the basic things meditation can do and does do is create focus, is create a sense of attention that's grounded and settled and steady and unified and gathered together. And so, that's definitely something that is helpful for an ADHD person, is to have more of a sense of, I'm going to choose to put my attention on something and have it stay there.
This is Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert, and I'm Meredith. I explore the questions people think but don't ask out loud, either because they're taboo or thanks to cultural hypnosis. My mission, and yours if you choose to accept it, is to inspire curiosity by exploring the nuance and paradox of our world. Each episode is different, so bring your ADD and your earbuds and have a look around. Hey, Curiositors, it's me, Meredith. You pressed play today, and I am so very grateful. If you have been curious about meditation and also have ADHD, this is a great episode for you. My guest is an expert meditator with ADHD, and his dry wit and relatability just make you feel seen. He covers specific meditation technique suggestions for those with ADHD, impulsivity and brashness, and even shares a 5-minute guided meditation at the end. Now, if you think of someone you know while you're listening, be sure to share this episode with that person. It helps me grow the show and spread the message of curiosity. If you end up liking this episode, you'll also like the one I did with Jesse Coomer, where he does a 30-minute guided breathwork session. That's episode 64. And if you're new here, welcome. Around here, we press play to get curious, disrupt the algorithm, and grow into better humans. We talk about everything from cannibalism to cocaine, lots of taboo topics. So bring your ADD and your earbuds and have a look around. There's no specific order to listen to episodes. You can just download the episodes with the titles that intrigue you for listening later on your next commute. We can all agree that the world is a busy place. But for those of us with ADHD, there are additional layers of busyness. Memories of dumb things we said in 6th grade, swirling ideas, begging us to try them, the inner mom that scolds us, and a couple of Disney songs. All this to say the idea of meditating for most is laughable. But what if meditation could be part of the solution? My next guest has meditated daily for 34 years, lived in monasteries in the US and Asia for 4 years, and even meditated once for 4 hours straight, all with ADHD. Now he teaches meditation and mindfulness for the public, including specialized sessions for those with ADHD. Today, he's going to share how meditation has helped him, what the benefits are for the distractible among us, and give us some practical tips to try. The relatable, the focused, computer programmer by day, meditation teacher by night, Adam Coutts. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure. I appreciate the invitation to be on.
Well, a lot of people, I think, kind of circle around the idea of meditation, or maybe they tried it once, but not many people, it's safe to say, have taken it to the level that you have taken it. So can you share the first time that you meditated and what made it so, attractive to you?
Maybe I'll tell my story a little bit more broadly, if that's okay.
Of course.
So I was diagnosed in 2005, and I remember at the time thinking that I didn't really think ADHD was a real thing. I thought it was like general anxiety, just something kind of a junk category that psychiatrists gave to people when they didn't know what else to give, what other diagnosis to give people, just that they could get the insurance money. I didn't think I really had it. I remember reading, if a person has ADHD, they requisite had it in childhood, and I don't remember having it in childhood. And then my parents gave me all my old report cards from elementary school, junior high school, and high school. And I was like, oh yeah, this is a real thing, and I really have it. They all said things like daydreaming, inattentive, tuned out. I've written down here, not a good listener, lack of organization, lack of routine, unable to complete one task at a time, not completing tasks at all, late to class or missed it entirely. I don't remember that, but I guess it happened. Lack of dedication, lack of effort, careless, can't follow directions, makes brash cutting comments to other kids that hurt their feelings. That I remember. Handing a room late, work late, sleepy in class. And one book said the real telltale sign is does not live up to potential. And every single card said that. But they also said things like, I'm curious about so many things, wide range of knowledge and interests, quirky and appealing and unique and creative, delightful sense of humor, self-aware, sometimes explains things to the other kids better than I can, best work in class when finally hands it in 3 weeks late. So there were good sides and there were bad sides. I remember also, my parents handed me this agreement I made with them, and I'm like, I'm so sorry I can't keep my room clean. It's so awful. I really felt for my little self and wanted to give him a little hug and be like, it's okay. You're doing the best you can. So I think I figured out strategies without knowing what it was I was developing strategies for. I became a long distance runner, which I now know really pumps up the dopamine and the norepinephrine. I started carrying a pad of paper and a pen around with me to write down ideas when I had them. I stopped eating sugar, which is, I believe, definitely a helpful thing for people with ADHD. I think you had an episode about diet cures for psychiatric issues. I think you did.
Yeah, I think I've talked about like food addiction and the correlation between food and mental health is a pretty reoccurring theme around here.
Yeah, there you go. I started taking classes on attentive listening and reflective listening, being focused, interpersonally attuned with other people, just generally workshops on interpersonal attunement. I joined a men's team where there was a lot of interpersonal accountability, structures of checking in. And so then, I was drawn to meditation. And I think the first time I did was in a Tai Chi class, summer of 1989. And, we're supposed to stand still, and I don't remember what the instruction was, be aware of the breath or something. And I was bombarded by so many strong emotions. I felt unbelievable feeling of overwhelm, like I was going to explode, like just really strong emotional memories. My main teacher, Shinzen Young, who I've studied with for about 35 years, and who has very strong ADHD also, he sometimes describes certain experiences in meditation as, it doesn't hurt, but I can't stand it. And I definitely had a lot of that at that moment. But I stuck with it. And, I started meditating regularly and got up to 40 minutes daily, and then did my first retreat. And I've done about 80 or 85 of them since in America and Asia, as you said. And I'll be honest, a fair amount of the Americans that I see in the meditation scene, I think have ADHD, and I think are drawn there pretty much often not knowingly what's there. And then my friends bugged me to, start to teach, and so I started to teach. I remember my main friend that asked me to put together a class and teach. I just thought he was being super kind to me, but now I realize he had really bad ADHD, and he actually literally felt like he needed to learn to meditate. So as I think you and I talked about in our pre-call, then I actually started taking ADHD seriously about 10 years ago and really educating myself and reading a lot of books. And I see how I was drawn to meditation when I was, 35 years ago, because it was a natural cure or ameliorative for ADHD. There's some debate, can you actually cure ADHD? Or is it just like diabetes, something you manage? And I think, I think there's a lot of evidence on both sides, but there is some evidence that really hardcore meditation practice can change some of the brain functions, actually make life, as a great coping strategy for ADHD. I don't know if that's true. I feel like I still need to manage it each day, but I have found it's had a lot of really positive benefits.
So what have the benefits been for you personally?
I've heard many people say ADHD is a bad name. Attention deficit and hyperactivity are the two things that bug adults about ADHD kids. They're not the main experience on the inside of a person with ADHD. Nonetheless, it's right there, attention deficit, right? And, as many people say, it's not attention deficit, it's variable attention or scattered attention. Well, one of the basic things meditation can do and does do is create focus. is create a sense of attention that's grounded and settled and steady and unified and gathered together. And so, that's definitely something that is helpful for an ADHD person, is to have more of a sense of, I'm going to choose to put my attention on something and have it stay there. There's a lot of techniques that really emphasize focus. For example, the classic number one technique many people learn, which is steadying the attention on the breath. That's your mind wanders away, you bring it back. Your mind wanders away, you bring it back. It's building the muscle of concentration such that a person has that faculty more available to them by choice. My favorite meditation technique is just simply to feel the body, though, and that's useful in so many ways for ADHD people. I was talking about my childhood, saying brash things that kind of hurt other people's feelings. I did that into adulthood. And I remember just thinking, people are too fragile. And it wasn't until I really understood ADHD that I really realized I can have good intentions, and it can be true that people's feelings are hurt by what I say. And I think when I really realized that, I learned the value of, when I'm around people and want to say that thing, just feel in my body what's driving me to say it, and just bring my full attention there, deeply feel it, and wait till I'm coming from a more calm place where the waters of the pond don't have big ripples on them. They're still, and then see what comes forth. So somatic self-soothing is wonderful in so many different ways. There's other techniques I could talk about also being valuable for an ADHD person, but those are two that come to mind as having great blessings for a person with ADHD.
Well, I definitely want to talk about techniques in a little bit. It's interesting to hear how meditation helped you, especially in that area of like impulse control, that you were like impulsively wanting to say something. And I think a lot of people relate to that. I'm trying to imagine myself as a complete non-meditator, because I'm a sort of kind of meditator. I'm sure that's an actual legit label, right? But if somebody has ADHD and is not at all a meditator, they're barely making it through yoga class, right? That sort of person. To them, I would imagine that meditating would feel like, what is that called? Exposure therapy. You're like, sir, ma'am, do you hate spiders? Great. We're going to put them all over your body. And then fast forward 6 weeks, you're going to not hate spiders. So, I mean, is it exposure therapy, or is there something else to it that helps the ADHD mind?
Yeah. I once saw on Twitter, psychologist, what's your biggest fear? And client, social exposure, psychologist getting out spider. Guess again. Relevant. Yeah, I mean, I talked earlier about my first experience with meditation, feeling like I was going to explode. And I think if it wasn't the fact that everyone else was standing in the circle, and it would have been very noticeable if I had left, I really wanted to leave. I think that there's a lot of value in that facing that. My main teacher, again, who has a really strong ADHD, he talks about, if you mined a chunk of gold and you brought it to a metal appraiser, I don't know if there is such a thing, but let's just say, and the metal appraiser is like, well, I'd like to give you money, but this is pure gold. Come back when you can give me pure gold. And so what do? Would you stare at it and get the nickel and the cadmium and the iron out of it? What you do is you heat it up. And when you heat it up, the different metals, I guess, float to different levels, and you can scrape off the things that aren't the pure gold. Well, similarly, meditation, sometimes, you heat things up and you purify, and you can get at things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get at. The residue of past trauma, the residue of something that happened last week that you're still carrying around with you. And it's not always a pleasant experience, but there's a meaningfulness to it. It's not a short-term fix, but it's a thorough fix. So if an ADHD person is sitting there and is really uncomfortable and feeling like, I'm burning, I'm cooking, they can take solace in the fact that there's probably something really good happening, even as unpleasant in the moment as it might be.
Is that what you call inner agitation?
Inner agitation, cooking, I think they're roughly the same idea.
Okay. And that's just that ADHD, unsettled unsettled feeling that people get when feeling antsy within their bodies and like their brain is swirling and can't land on one thought.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's common for ADHD people. A fidgety feeling like I got so much to do, I don't have time for whatever it is that's right in front of me. Or yeah, just feeling like we're wound up by a motor. Pretty common experiences. And again, meditation's great for that, especially somatic self-soothing is something I found to be an excellent tool for that.
When you say somatic, I think movement. Is that, am I close to what that means? Maybe you can explain that more.
Yeah, well, when I say somatic, I just mean of the body. So somatic self-soothing, again, my favorite technique, just notice where I feel something in my body, pleasant, unpleasant, strong, subtle, in motion or kind of feeling more still, and just bring my attention there. Deeply feel it for a few seconds, release my attention, see where it wants to go, same spot, somewhere different, deeply feel that for a few seconds. So that's of the body, somatic, and the self-soothing part is if you really bring your attention to something in the body, it probably will relax on its own. I think in terms of meditation and motion, that is a thing. I think people who meditate sometimes are surprised how much traditional Asian meditation practice is done by monks while walking. However, I think the more a person can sit still, the more the body settles and the more the mind settles. I think walking meditation is valuable in many ways, especially if a person is like they just can't sit still or they just ate a big meal or they're sleepy. But I recommend for meditators in general and ADHD people, as much as you can sit when you're meditating, you're going to kind of make progress more rapidly that way. Can I give a little exposition?
I would love that.
Exposition?
Yeah.
Great. So I've listened to some other people talking about ADHD and meditation on podcasts, etc. And I mean, some people I've heard say an ADHD person should never meditate, or they should only meditate for a short period of time, or they should always walk. Don't ever try to sit. I've heard people say, don't ever do a technique that really involves a lot of concentration. Just kind of be aware of everything as it is. I was trained in Buddhist monasteries, and meditation is divided into two main aspects in Buddhism. One is focusing the mind. And that's kind of usually done first. And the second is sort of being aware of everything as it is, exactly as it is. And that's traditionally done second. And it's seen as, a steady mind is like a microscope or a telescope that's stable. And then it's easier for you to use the telescope or the microscope to do science to really examine what is. So it's seen as useful to do it sequentially. I've heard some people, at least one person say on a podcast, if you have ADHD, just skip to that second step because the first step is going to be too hard for you. So I don't think that's true. I think that's like if a person's in poor physical health saying to them, well, you shouldn't work out because it's going to be extra hard for you.
Yeah.
Well, that's the person that extra needs the workout. I think there's ways to make meditation harder and there's ways to make it easier. And I think there's reasons to make it harder because you'll make more progress more rapidly and you'll be a calmer person with fewer hours of practice. And there's reasons to make it easier. If it's just like bench pressing 500 pounds, I'm just going to break my sternum here. I want a lighter weight. One way to make it easier is to walk. One way to make it harder is to sit still. One way to make it easier is to meditate for longer. Instead of meditating 20 minutes for 3 days in a row, meditate 1 hour one day. A way to make it easier is shorter. Start with 1 minute, for example. A way to make it easier is to be aware of just everything. There's not as much of that focus element, the work that takes. A way to make it harder is focus your attention on one little thing, your breath, the soles of your feet as you walk, a repeated phrase, a so-called mantra. A way to make it harder is meditate with your eyes open. That's good because it translates more easily into the rest of your life. A way to make it easier is close your eyes. A way to make it harder is have piles of laundry in front of you or books you want to read. It more integrates your meditation into your life and you'll have more of the feelings of how your real life is. Way to make it easier is stare at a blank wall or just the carpet. Easier to clear your mind. A way to make it harder is meditate on your own, just with your own guidance. Easier, use an app or be in an online group and have the teacher in your ear telling you to come back to your breath or whatever. So again, people can turn up the heat or turn down the heat as they want. I think especially for an ADHD beginner, maybe turning down the heat. Use an app, do some walking, do for a little period of time. But I think eventually turning up the heat, do your own guidance, sit for longer, sit still, do things that are more going at hard right angles with our agitation of mind. There's going to be more value there in the end.
Hey, we're going to pause real quick to show some love to our sponsors. You'll also hear about a podcast that I'm into. If you like true crime and survivor stories, you're going to love it. When we come back, you'll hear me ask 2 very personal meditation questions to Adam, the difference between cultivating and mindfulness, and get a 5-minute guided meditation session. If you ever wonder where I find guests for the show, the answer is it varies a lot. And since it's something that gets asked a lot, I started including the backstory of each episode in my Monday emails. And then on Saturday, I share cliff notes and clickable links in case what you heard was so good you wish you could have taken notes. If you want to be included, text REAL to 66866 if you're in the US, or go to meredithforreal.com if you're elsewhere. If you're listening north of the state of Georgia, mosquitoes are not top of mind right now. But if you're in the Florida Panhandle or Gulf Coast of Alabama, you're already dusting off your grill and citronella candles. Make life easy for future you and get your property scheduled for a mosquito treatment with Insect. I've been using them since 2019 and they continue to impress me. They guarantee their work and pollinators are always top of mind. Check them out at ensec.net. If you watch the show on YouTube, then you see the beautiful backdrop of Trader John's, the exhibit where I record the show inside the Pensacola Museum of History. This is just one museum under the umbrella of the UWF Historic Trust. If you're planning a trip to Pensacola and need an indoor activity option, pick up a ticket. It's good for a whole week. Get your tickets in person so you can show the agent one of my emails and get $2 off an adult ticket. Now back to the show. Remember to stay till the end where I give you a sneak peek of next week's episode. I never thought of meditation as like having a dial of difficulty or challenge, really. Because what you're talking about is like, okay, you could challenge yourself or, have like a entry level experience. I really like that. I have 2 personal meditation questions for you that I'd like to run by you, see what you think. So one is, I've meditated here and there, for a number of years. And when I do, I've never used an app. It's too distracting. I always think about the person's voice or it's like does the opposite. But I do it sitting because walking is too distracting. So hopefully I'm giving someone hope out there. But when I sit, I can dial in pretty quickly and I feel, it feels like being high on weed. It's like a buzzing or a vibration throughout my body that even before I smoked weed, I felt. But then when I smoked weed, I was like, oh, I know this feeling. This is like meditation. It doesn't stay for very long. I don't try to force it to stay, blah, blah, blah. But I love it because it makes me feel quite recharged. What is that?
People have a lot of different individual reactions to meditation, some unpleasant, some pleasant. I think broadly speaking, I sometimes think of meditation, if a person pursues it with some degree of diligence as sort of geological strata. Like you're just living your life and there's this hard layer of kind of trauma or difficulty or stuff that we kind of avoid, our shadow, our past issues. And a lot of people just bounce away from that and drink too much or watch too much TV. But in meditation, we kind of sit with it and kind of face unpleasant memories, unpleasant body sensations. A lot of it's not as clear as psychotherapy. It's not like you remember that time in 5th grade. It's just you feel agitated and then you kind of work through that. And then there's this big feeling of expansiveness and kind of like integration. And that lasts for a while. And the person's sort of psyche is more free and bigger. And then they hit another level of sort of stuff and work through that. That's a common experience. So a lot of times when people hit those hard levels of sort of working through something from their recent past or their distant past, there's a lot of unpleasant experiences, feeling like there's bugs crawling through their skin when there's, not, or, seeing weird colors, or the body starts to twitch. So a lot of the experiences that people come and talk to me, I'm seeing all these swirls of color. I'm having all these images of violence. Like, is that okay? I just say to them again and again, it's fine. It's all part of the process. If you're still disturbed of days later, then maybe it's something to take a look at. But if it just disturbs you during your meditation and for a few minutes afterwards, that's fine. I think the same thing with a lot of the pleasant sensations, energy shooting up your spine, like, feeling like I'm high, feeling like everything's perfect and floaty. Like, there's a lot of pleasant experiences that people have when they meditate too. You can get technical and on a psychological level be like, oh, this has to do with this life script or this, thing that your parents expected of you, or this sort of aspect of your personality. Or you could get spiritual about it and be like, well, that means you should breathe more deeply and then really visualize, this or that. What I usually just tell people is it's all fine. It's all part of the process. Just open to it and keep on with your technique. I think intense pleasurable sensations in meditation, sometimes people figure out a way to create them, like create bliss states, and then that's their meditation. But that's not really meditation. That's kind of just playing with the mind. I think if a person has a really great technique, like feeling the body, being aware of the breath, noticing thoughts, whatever the technique is, what I would say is just keep on with that technique, and you might feel floaty and high. You might feel like really agitated. You might get really sleepy. You might have strong emotions come up. Your body might twitch. Your body might feel incredibly still. Just, keep on with the technique. I don't know if that's a satisfying answer for you, but that's what I got.
No, it's a good answer. It's an honest answer. The second question that I have, and then I'll move back into things that are not about me, is I guess the question before I tell you this is this a thing? Is this a technique? I haven't done this in a long time, but I used to I have a room, not a real room, a room in my mind. And it's a room that, thank you for holding back your laughter. Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay, cool. And this is so embarrassing. I decorate it like in my mind. So like I go open the door and and this is all in my mind. And then I walk through the door and then I sit down and then I scan the room and I just try to be in that room, like keep my attention in that room and not on random things that float me out, like suck me out of the room. And then every time I would quote unquote visit the room, I would try to decorate it more in my mind, not through physically in my mind placing something, but it was like, what if I could, have that be a red curtain? And then I would like, oh, I like that. I'm going to keep that there. And the next time I would go there, there'd be the red curtain, or, oh, I have this cool lamp in there. Anyway, is this a thing?
Sounds like The Sims.
It is. Oh my God. It's meditation Sims.
All right. No, that's completely wrong. You're doing great damage to yourself.
Oh, great.
No, sounds fun. The word meditation means so many different things, and it was a word that existed in the West, like the word enlightenment or other words that were used to translate Asian religious concepts, even before people started bringing Asian religion to the West in the 19th century. So the word meditation means a lot of different things. Basically, sometimes it means tarot cards or contacting the Pleiadian aliens or something. I can't really speak to that. But in terms of things that I feel like really create positive personal growth, I divide it into two categories. There's cultivations and there's mindfulness. The great psychologist Abraham Maslow said there's two ways to grow as a person. One is to decide who you want to be and take the difficult actions to move towards that. And one is to discover who you already are and relax into that and give that space. And so both of those are reflected in the two different kinds of meditation, cultivation and mindfulness. Also in Christian prayer, sometimes you're beseeching God to sort of create something for you. And other times you're just listening for God's will. Similarly, sort of penetrating out the world or receiving the world. Mindfulness is more just noticing what is as it is. I'm going to feel my body as it is. I'm not going to try and change anything. Just notice what is. I'm going to feel my breath exactly as it is. If it's long and smooth, great. If it's short and jagged and anxious, great. Just going to listen to it and notice it the exact way it is. Going to notice my thoughts rising and falling. That's mindfulness. Cultivation is traditionally in Asian religion, like I'm going to cultivate gratitude for my ancestors. I'm going to cultivate a loving heart for all beings. Very common cultivations in Asian. There's a certain degree of concentrating the mind and noticing when it wanders away, but basically you're deciding on a certain mind state that you want and using the power of awareness to create that. A psychotherapist might say, I want you to look in the mirror and say, I'm lovable. I'm attracting the love of my life. A business coach might have you lie down and relax and visualize your company having its IPO and say to yourself, I deserve an 8-figure valuation IPO. I deserve it. You're using your power of awareness, but you're not listening to what is, you're creating something. And I think it's a really great technique to visualize your happy place. It's one that I teach in my mindfulness for insomnia class. Visualize you're at a forest waterfall, or visualize you're lying in the tropics on the beaches, on the surf edge. And so visualize a room that you're happy in, whether it's your childhood room that you grew up in, or a second life room. That's a great practice. I would say it's a little bit more cultivation. You're cultivating something that's pleasant or relaxing as opposed to just noticing what is. But I think it's a perfectly fine thing to do. What I basically do in my class is mostly mindfulness. And some of my teachers have emphasized to me, mindfulness by itself can be a little stark. There is really a value in cultivation meditations as well, to create a warm-heartedness, to create relaxation, to create good vibes, to create a positive future for yourself, visualizing success. So I think they both have their place.
Just knowing.
Is that relevant?
Oh, 100%. Your third grade teacher was right. You do explain things quite well.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Whew,
thank you.
Yeah. No, I actually never bifurcated it in that way. And that's really helpful. I think people listening will find that very helpful too. I think the part that is really difficult.
I want to say one more thing about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to use my ADHD card here and interrupt. I teach a course on mindfulness for insomnia, and it's one of my most popular special courses. A lot of people apparently have insomnia. And one thing that I emphasize there is it's a different set of techniques that a person would do first thing in the morning for personal growth than they would do last thing at night to sort of help them to fall asleep if that's an issue, or if they wake up in the middle of the night, which apparently a lot of other people have. Just like if you really needed to cook a gourmet meal tonight, you'd go with something you already know how to make and are good at. But if you want to be a good cook a year from now, you'd experiment, you'd try new things, and maybe burn something or have something with too much paprika. But, that's what would make you a better cook a year from now. Similarly, if you want to have less insomnia a year from now, meditate on what is first thing in the morning. Open yourself to how your body feels. Notice your thoughts. Notice the sounds you're able to hear. It might agitate you in the short term, but in the long term, it'll untangle who you are. Your soul will be unfurled. You'll be someone that's more at ease. You'll fall asleep more easily years from now. In the short term, though, if you need to fall asleep like right now, you got an interview with Meredith tomorrow morning, a little bit of nerves, but you need to get to bed. Sort of being aware of what is, sort of the mindfulness aspect, that might make you in the short term more agitated. You're just on your computer having fun and you sit down for 5 minutes of meditation. Wow, I really do have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this thing tomorrow that I was noticing when I was on Twitter. Wow, I am actually more wound up. So something like what you said, visualizing a relaxing room, or like I lead, visualizing a still forest waterfall, or visualizing yourself lying back in the sun while the surf laps at you. Just visualizing a really relaxing place. That's more like cooking a meal you know how to make. It's like it gives you relaxation immediately. Probably not the best meditation to do all the time because it's kind of escapist. It doesn't get you in touch with your body and your mind and who you really are. But if you need relaxation reliably, you're about to give a big presentation, or again, you want to fall asleep, or you're really nervous about something and you just need to calm down. Cultivating relaxation by visualizing a happy place is a great technique to do in those circumstances.
Okay. I think the part that a lot of people with ADHD struggle with is, where am I putting this in my routine? As you alluded to earlier, routine in general is one of those things that we struggle with, is being consistent. And, so do you have any tips for people who have never meditated, let's pretend, and they want to begin it, but they're just struggling with going from good intentions to follow through?
Yeah. It reminds me of something I think I've read in more than one ADHD book, which is, the psychiatrist says, well, what would be really good for you, ADHD person, is exercise and meditation and healthy diet and get lots of sleep and, take breaks during your workday and make sure you have good social time where you connect with friends. And the ADHD person is like, if I was able to do all that, I wouldn't need all that. So yeah, routine is great for us. And if we're able to keep routine, we wouldn't have such a need for routine. I think I don't do that these days. I have at times in my life, but meditating first thing in the morning when waking up is probably the easiest way to have it be a part of a person's life. Just like you visit the bathroom, you put on a blanket and you sit down. Don't check the dog, don't check the email or the phone, don't do anything. I think that's the easiest way to make sure it gets done in the day. I think another way to work it into one's life, if one's like, oh, I should do it and I'm not doing it, is interpersonal accountability. I think interpersonal accountability is the strongest tool, possibly, next to Adderall, that an ADHD person has at their disposal. Like anything important in your life, make a promise to someone else and have some sort of situation where they'll check in on you. I think having a buddy where you're like, I'll text you each day when I do my meditation, or at the end of the week, how many days I meditated. Someone else that meditates, it can be someone that lives in the same house as you, or it can be, a friend, or even, I don't know. I think there's sites where you can set that up with strangers. Interpersonal accountability is a way to, it's the same thing with exercise or eating healthy or getting more done at one's office job or cleaning out the garage. Make a promise to someone such that they'll loop around and check in with you, or you'll check back in with them. That's a way to take steps that we're resisting.
And you mentioned earlier that you had some other specific, maybe technique suggestions for meditating with ADHD. Do you mind going ahead and sharing those?
Yeah, thanks. I talked about meditating on the breath or some other technique that involves a lot of focus. Breath is the most common technique throughout different nationalities, different eras, different lineages of meditation. I talked about somatic self-soothing, really feeling the body. And I'd actually like us to do a little bit of that before we sign off, if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
And I think two other techniques that I think are great for ADHD people are being aware of thoughts, just watching them rise and fall as waves. I don't think just that description will give someone enough to actually know how to do it, but it is a technique, both visual thoughts, pictures and movies in our mind, or verbal thoughts, words, concepts, conversations in our mind. You can just notice when it's happening and kind of relax into the blank or the quiet when it's not happening. That's a technique that I often lead. And I think, something I often hear from people is, oh, I can't meditate. And I say, why? And people often say, I can't get rid of my thoughts, right? And there are techniques where if you do it for years very diligently, your mind will get quiet. For example, meditation on the breath. But for the most part, you don't have to get rid of thoughts in meditation. I think that's not really a very realistic goal for ADHD people with our lack of internal filter for thoughts just popping off all the time. I think sometimes going with the issue rather than trying to go against it and just noticing your thoughts, giving them space. So sort of like a snow globe, you don't push each little, you shake it up. Those tchotchkes you get at, in Canada or something. You don't push each flake down. You just kind of watch all the flakes and they settle down on their own. I think just being aware of thoughts is a great technique for ADHD people. And the last one that I think is a super valuable technique for ADHD people is, I just mentioned, repeating a phrase or mantra. A mantra connotes sort of Asian mystical, like you have to say Om or something in Sanskrit. Mantra can be as simple as just some affirmation that you'd like to make for yourself. Like, I'm comfortable in my own skin, or, I'm able to listen deeply to people, or, you know, I am enough or something like that. You can just repeat that over and over again to yourself out loud or silent, kind of similar to Western affirmation practice. So one great mantra is, I'm patient, forgiving, and accepting with myself. So, I'm sometimes late to meet people. It's something I've done my whole life. I do it less than I used to, but it still sometimes happens, and I often just am dying 1,000 deaths as I'm stuck in traffic trying to get there. And I think when I was a lot younger, I would arrive and I'd be like all agitated and not attuned to people, and just the whole thing would be a little wonky. But I think what I often do in those situations is I steady my attention and I repeat, I'm accepting, forgiving, I'm friendly, accepting, and forgiving with myself. And I say that over and over again. ADHD for many people involves so many failures, so many social rejections, so many, difficulties. And I think, ADHD is often comorbid, to use the psychiatric term, with anxiety and depression and a lot of self-criticism. And I think a lot of the kids on Reddit say sensitivity to social rejection because it happens so often. And I think finding a phrase that just makes a person feel friendly with themselves, whatever the languaging of that, and then just at times, while you're folding laundry, while you're doing dishes, while you're going for a walk, while you're driving your car, just repeating that phrase. Again, one I like, may I be friendly, forgiving, and accepting with myself. Just saying that over and over again and cultivating that warm-hearted feeling. I think it does create a more relaxed body. It creates more ability to actually relate to people because not coming from shame and agitation. So I think there's a lot of value there. And anything a person's working on, I'm comfortable with sobriety if a person's trying to quit drinking or something. You can pick a little phrase for it and say it over and over again, and it does make things easier to make that positive change.
I like I am here. That's the one that I use a lot because I am not here. I'm like,
fair enough.
Wee! I'm in Canada collecting tchotchkes, apparently. So I like I am.
Or a room with red curtains.
Yeah, it's a Florida room specifically with a screen. Anyway, yeah. This has been so good. Okay, I promise we can definitely do the guided meditation. But before we do that, because I am afraid that one of us will forget, will you tell people about your Tuesday night meditation? Because I think that is a built-in recipe of success for someone with ADHD, because it's a time they have to show up. So the accountability thing is there, and it's assisted and supported.
Yeah, I appreciate the invitation. So my website is intromeditation.com, intro as in introduction and meditation as in what we've been talking about, .com. And there's a pop-up that comes up immediately for signing up to my email list. So I announce things like this interview that we're doing right here and when I post guided meditations. So people are free to sign up for that. Unfortunately, most of the sitting groups that I lead in classes are sort of proprietary inside corporations, but the one public sitting group I have is Tuesday night. People are completely invited and welcome. Unfortunately, since I think probably the plurality of your listeners are in the Eastern time zone, it's 7 p.m. Pacific time, which is, I guess, 10 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday nights. So if people are up for it, feel free to show up. What I usually do is explain a technique. We do it for 25 minutes. I do a positivity cultivation technique, and then there's open Q&A and discussion and reports. If that doesn't work for a person, there's tons of online groups these days. And, if you've never meditated before, there's a lot of great apps out there. There's all sorts of resources that are available on the internet and on your phone to help a person with getting started and with helping a person find a community, whether they have an in-person group available to them or not. So, people are completely invited to my group. And if that doesn't work for them, but you'd like to explore meditation, I suggest to you get on the internet and do a little research, and you can probably find something that works for you.
Thank you. I think that would be very cool. I know I'll be checking it out. Okay, awesome. Let's do the thing.
All right, let's do the thing. Hopefully, you will not feel like you're going to explode.
Hopefully not.
But as I said, if you do, might be a good thing. All right, so let's take a more upright posture than we usually do, lifting up with the crown of our head. I invite you to consider having your ears, your shoulders, and your hips in a straight line with each other, perpendicular to the ground. That will help you to uncompress your belly, be able to breathe deeply and easily. And it will help you to relax your back and your neck. You might want to think of your back as a strong tree that you can lean back against, and taking a deep breath in. As you exhale, letting all the flesh of your body hang limp and loose off that strong tree trunk. One more deep breath in, lifting up as tall as you can. Then as you relax, letting all the soft parts of your body hang limp and loose. Softening your face, dropping your shoulders, arms going limp and loose, soft belly, relaxed hips. And I invite you to bring your attention to your body. What feels most alive in your body? And bring your attention there and deeply, fully feel it. Let your attention fully experience itself inside that body sensation. Now it's a new moment. Does your attention want to stay in that spot or somewhere else? Wherever your attention is drawn, absorb your attention completely into that body sensation, bringing friendliness and acceptance. And how about now? Does your attention stay in the same spot? Move around? Both are fine. Every few seconds, anchoring your attention in one spot, having it be settled and unified just for those few seconds, then release. Your attention may stay in the same spot or may move. With each sensation as you feel it, bringing a sense of openness and spaciousness, patience, and welcoming. You may notice distractions from the simplicity of how your body feels. External sounds besides my voice, tastes and smells, and especially visual thoughts, pictures, and movies in your mind, or verbal thoughts, concepts, words, conversations. Both are fine. Both are completely normal. Doing your best just to let all that other stuff drop into the background. Bring your attention again and again back to the simplicity of how your body feels at this moment. And lost in thought is not meditation. Noticing that you were lost in thought is excellent meditation. You notice a strong emotion. Where in your body do you feel that emotion? Give that some space and deeply feel it. Is there something that feels like, if it weren't for that thing, I could really meditate? I'm sleepy, or that dripping faucet, or that pain. Deeply feel that thing, wherever it manifests in your body. See if you can sink into a deeper level, sensitizing your awareness. Noticing more of the texture and details of each body sensation. Bringing even more vividness and aliveness to each sensation as you feel it. Letting your attention soak into each body sensation like water into a fresh, clean sponge. And bringing a sense of friendliness and openness, welcoming, patience. Each body sensation as you feel it. And if your eyes are closed, slowly opening them, maybe doing a little stretch, and great job, everyone.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I felt very relaxed.
Excellent. Happy to hear it.
Yes. I also had a visualization of lunch meat. So,
And I always predict these things.
I love that you are not that shocked by that, and you're fully accepting of the randomness.
I've encountered some very strange sides of being human in my meditative.
I think that's not a bad thing. I really appreciate this conversation, and I really hope that it does inspire people to seek meditation as a way to use their mind in the best way that they can, and to be able to just feel a little bit more, at the driver's wheel.
Sounds great. I hope so too. May it be so.
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I love talking about this stuff. I love having a platform to reach people and share some of this good stuff with people. So thank you for that, Meredith.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. Did you think of someone you know while you listened? Help me grow the show by sharing this episode with that person. If you liked this episode, you might also like the one I did with Jesse Coomer, where he does a 30-minute guided breathwork session. It's episode 64. Stay tuned next week when I talk with a myofunctional airway specialist on why the source of your stress could actually be your tongue.